Are you going through a transition? I feel like a lot of us are, whether it's a military transition or a fork in the road with your relationship or any kind of time when you're in a season of change. There's a lot of stress and a lot of grief that goes with that. And here to talk more about military transition and overall how we can take these stories of struggle and turn them into art, I have Kerron Andrews. Kerron, how are you doing today?
I am fantastic, but improving.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, I think that's a good place to be because you were already fantastic. Now you're improving, so it's even better. So, welcome everyone to the Stories of Service podcast, ordinary people who do extraordinary work. I am the host of Stories of Service, Teresa Carpenter, and you are now in episode 191. So we are almost at 200 episodes, 4 years running. So hopefully we'll get over that finish line very shortly. But here to kick off the introduction of the show, I have a video here from my father, Charlie Pickard.
From the moment we're born and lock eyes with our parents, we are inspiring others. By showing up as a vessel of service, we not only help others, we help ourselves. Welcome to S.O.S, Stories of Service, hosted by Teresa Carpenter, here from ordinary people from all walks of life who have transformed their communities by performing extraordinary work.
Now, as we go through a transition, there's a thing that I think that a lot of people feel that happens, and you said this in the video, and it's this loss of our entire identity. Because for many of us, I know for myself, military wasn't just a job, it was my foundation, my purpose, and at times it was honestly the only thing I ever had. I'd gone through a divorce, I had moved, I had lost friends or lost touch with people, but I always knew I had the military. So even when I doubted myself, this service gave me a sense of belonging. And so when that chapter ends, it's not just a career you leave behind, it's this version of who you thought you were. And I believe that there are a lot of people who are in that same position when they dedicate their years, even decades to service. So today on the Stories of Service podcast, I'm going to be talking to Kerron Andrews, who has served in the Navy as a veteran. He has taken those skills since being a veteran and gone on to be a TEDx speaker and is now an award-winning filmmaker. And his films also help others navigate that complex path of military transition. And I'm going to ask him today what inspired him to do this TEDx talk. I shared some clips of it earlier, and I will link to it in the show notes. Why he chose filmmaking as a second calling, and now how he's using this creative voice to help others reclaim their identity and purpose beyond the uniform. Welcome again, Kerron.
Thank you. Glad to be here. Glad to be here. Super excited, pumped up. By the way, I love what your father said about inspiring others and kind of service to other people, because that's kind of like my motto now, in a sense. Service to others, always.
Absolutely. When it stops being about a paycheck and becomes about a purpose, there's something that's so magical about that. And not everybody gets the chance to be able to do that and to be able to focus in on that. And so the people who can do that and work on their art are truly blessed, and I do believe have a responsibility to use that creative endeavor to give back to others and be of service. So I want to start off by asking, where were you born and raised, and what inspired you to initially join the Navy?
So I was born and raised in the beautiful island of Trinidad and Tobago, which is located in the West Indies. I migrated to the United States, Brooklyn, New York, the concrete jungle. And when I was in Brooklyn, New York, it was one of them things where I didn't know who I was, didn't know what I wanted to do. I think maybe I had a little bit of, I was maybe depressed from missing home because, that contrast of leaving a sunny island where we were very tribal-like, where we had villages and everybody know each other. So going in a place where there's millions of people, and if you say good morning to somebody, they'll look at you like you're crazy. This was kind of Brooklyn, New York. They'll give you directions everywhere you go, but you say good morning, they're looking at you like, the people are mean. And it's just, for me, that juxtaposition of just that change, it was rough, and didn't know what I wanted to do, didn't know who I am. And honestly, I did the one thing that I said I was never going to do when I got to the United States. When I got to the United States, I remember saying, these are words exactly, I would never go fight for Bush. That was my words. And sure enough, when I joined the Navy, I ended up on the George H.W. Bush CBN.
Oh my God. But why? Like, what was it? What was it that changed?
Um, just desperation,
Yeah.
no clue. It was one of them things where even when I walked into the recruiter's office, I didn't even care about, jobs in the Navy. I didn't even know what is a job. All I know was that the military is gonna take me out from my mom's house, get me to leave Brooklyn, New York, so I can start afresh and figure out what's beyond of these walls that I was trapped in when I was in Brooklyn, New York. That these walls of no purpose. I don't know who I am. Don't know what I want to do. Worried about getting shot on the street, and it was an escape for me. So it was desperation that made me join, and obviously I have no regrets about it. But yeah, it was desperation.
I'm glad you're so honest about that, because I feel like we're pressured in society to say, oh, I joined to be a part of something bigger, or I joined because I was super patriotic. And what you'll find, especially with those of us who enlist, is a lot of times the calling to serve in the military is really just to get out of our hometown, just to get out of a bad situation. We find that purpose and that identity once we join, but it isn't initially why we join. And so tell me a little bit about those early years in the Navy. How were they?
Honestly, they were wonderful. No regrets about it, because I'm coming into not knowing what's going on, not knowing much about life. And luckily for me, my ship that I joined, it was the first ship was a DDG 84 USS Bulkley. It was family there. So I felt loved. I was a part of something bigger than myself. I know that's the cliche thing, but I really was.
Right.
And I didn't have to worry about where I was going to eat. I didn't have to worry where I was going to sleep. I had a paycheck every 1st and 15th, regardless if I worked or not, and there's a sense of security and convenience that come with that. So I was taken care of. And while I was there, I was just there to do my job every day. We deployed, we travel all over the world. I've seen Spain and Italy and Greece and France and Dubai. And we didn't go out there and shoot guns. And, a lot of people believe that's what we do. We actually go out there as like a stress reliever,
ambassadors.
And then we do our stuff at sea. But no, for the most part of it, it was amazing.
Yeah.
Yes.
DDG life is amazing. I also had a very family-like atmosphere on USS Russell, and it really exposed me to that side of the Navy where everyone knows everybody on the ship, and you can do things on a DDG that you just can't do on a carrier or another big deck ship. You have a lot more agility. You have more freedom of maneuver.
Yes.
The port visits can be structured in a way that is more tailored to what the sailors want to do. Yeah. It really opened my eyes, because I've done a destroyer, I've done a big deck, an amphib, and I've done a carrier, and they all have their own very distinct personalities. Yeah, exactly. Because, a big deck with Marines, and then of course the aircraft carrier, flight deck operations. Yeah. It's, obviously the big grand ship. But what were some of those early lessons that you didn't have from childhood that you took that you learned while you were serving in the Navy? Was there anything in those early years that stood out to you that you didn't necessarily have a sense of until you started working with the Navy?
Well, for me, because I grew up in a place where it was really tribal and it's kind of like family oriented, I guess I had tribe. But when I was in Brooklyn, New York, I lost the tribe. And it was just, like I said, I was in a place with millions of people and I still felt alone, right? That connection, So joining the Navy, one of the first things that I felt was that tribal nature, I guess you can call it, because it was brotherhood in there. Our command, my deck department, they looked out for us. And it's funny because one of the cool things about this tribe is like you can identify military personnel when they go out into the civilian world, because one will be wearing a cowboy hat, another might be wearing a big gold chain, one might be wearing a flannel shirt, somebody might be wearing skinny jeans with Vans on. And it's such a beautiful thing to see how that's interconnected. And
you can't miss a sailor.
Yeah, really can't. I mean, it could be Marines, it could be, and it's the same thing for, every branch. You can just tell that's a group of sailors, that's a group of military personnel. And I guess that tribe was a beautiful thing. And then that also another thing I gained was that sense of purpose. Was it one of them things where I knew exactly what I wanted to do it far beyond? But no, it was more of a given purpose where I had a reason to wake up every single morning. And having that is better than having nothing.
Totally.
I had a task at hand. I had a mission to complete. When I started getting up in rank, I had sailors and soldiers and to take, sailors to take care of. So
right.
is these things I definitely gained while I'm joining, for sure.
And as you progressed through your career, did you ever think that you were going to make it all the way to 20, or did you think that you would just do 4 or 5 years, or what was your plans?
No, I was definitely a 20-year sailor. I could not see anything beyond the Navy because that's what I know. Was going well. I was doing pretty good for myself as a sailor. So no, definitely not. I was going to do 20 years.
So tell me a little bit about what happened along the way after that first ship that led you to not doing those 20 years.
So got to E6 in my career, Petty Officer First Class. And I was at a Special Warfare Command, EOD Mobile Unit 1. This was in Coronado. So we either in Coronado or Point Loma. We had two bases that we would switch back and forth. And career was going great. The EOD Command, by the way, is a beautiful, beautiful place to be if you're in the military. I mean, it was just amazing, man. They treat you like family there. It was so laid back in comparison to the ship. And I was, thinking about becoming chief, thinking about doing 20 years. And what happened was, unfortunately, and, to kind of condense this story a little bit, tragedy happened in my life, right? A 115-pound American bulldog attacked not one, not two, but all three of my kids in Temecula.
Wow. And
it made the news. And as you can imagine, it was, that was, traumatizing for my family at the time. And just trying to process that as a father, felt like I couldn't, protect my kids, felt responsible, images of this stuff playing in my mind. And, while all this is going on, the command did really well. They had like this little celebration thing for my kids, and they took care of me. They gave me time off. They was there at the hospital. They showering us with gifts. Talk about brotherhood and family. EOD Mobile Unit 1 at the time, they were there for me in
That's wonderful.
Every walk of the way. And, things start to cool down just a bit. I never forget, I was driving. So I started riding my motorcycle, and somebody knocked me off the highway in a motorcycle. I fell off my bike, and, that kind of traumatized me. I stopped riding. A couple months from that, 2 cars in my driveway got stolen. Was having marriage difficulties at the time too. And all these things were happening all at once. And just trying to process everything, and I never forget, we were supposed to deploy, and we're doing workups. And I think like a week out before my deployment, and I went to my chief, I'm a senior chief at the time, and I told him, I said, I don't think I can deploy. And he was cool about it. He was like, once again, they're looking out for us, right? Yeah, I was expecting him to maybe snap or look at me crazy. He was like, Boats, what's going on? Do you need some help? And I was like, yeah, I think I do. So long story short, I went and sat down and talked with a psychiatrist. And after a couple of sessions, he recommended basically that he think for my own sanity that I should get out the military.
Wow.
Huh. Yeah.
That's extreme that they made that recommendation, and backing up to that, the fact that your chain of command supported you. We don't talk about those stories. And I think we should. We should talk about the stories where the chain of command comes through for the sailor.
Oh, they came through for me. Swinging, batting.
That's amazing. And so he sat down with you, and he realized that the trauma that you had was something that he thought at that time wasn't something that could be worked out and still serve is kind of the decision that both of you guys made together, it sounds like.
Well, I didn't make that decision because honestly, I didn't even know why I was going in there. You know,
Okay.
if you left it up to me, I would have never go because
Mhm.
I want to do 20 years, right?
Sure.
And so after he said these things, what was scary about that is almost like when he was saying that, this was the first time I had to process that. So when it was almost like it was more scary than actually the trauma that happened to my family.
Right.
Yeah, because there's something called Sunday neurosis where basically, you know, you can go through your whole entire life working. And then for the first time in your life, you sit down to reflect on what you are and who you are without that job. It's a scary, scary thing. And I had to go to this type of Sunday neurosis on a large scale because this is the military. This is not a 9 to 5. This is next level
No.
programming. And it terrified me.
Wow. Wow. So I know you were also a recruiter. Did you do the recruiting duty after this, or did you do the
No, it
recruiting
was
duty
before. So yeah, recruiting
Mhm.
duty was basically the catalyst to every kind of the person who I am now. You know, and I didn't really think about recruiting duty until I actually start becoming a man of perspective. While I was there, I was one of the top recruiters in Ohio. I was putting people left and right. And, you know, I don't say that to impress you, just to impress upon you that I had to adhere to the law of averages, right? I had to talk to everybody. I was at the YMCA. I was at the malls. I was with the rich. I was with the poor. I was in the slums. Anywhere they were a heartbeat and there was people, I was there to talk to them about the Navy. I would be even in the malls putting business cards in the clothing pockets, you know. And believe it or not, sometimes I would get a random call and ask them where they, you know, find a business card from, and it would probably be my business card blowing in the street. And I was good at it. So, but what happened is I talked to a multitude of people, and I gained a lot of perspective from that, from talking to people. I understood, in a sense, why people join and why they make this decision to, you know, I had the front row seat.
Right, right. And I think that's one of the things that really stood out to me about your TEDx talk is that you talk about why people join, and you were honest about why you joined. It was the same reason why I joined. And I think it's this thing that people don't want to admit, but many of us came from traumatic upbringings or a background of trauma. And then we go into the military, and those same traumas, they just kind of replay and replay. And until you learn how to, and I don't think you're ever cured of it, of any of this, by the way, I think that you learn in time how to manage it better. You learn how to name it. You learn how to disconnect from it. You learn how to not sit in it all day long, all night long, all week long, all year long. But I think that when you're younger, you don't have the tools to even recognize that that's what is happening. And then you get into your work situations and you realize that you're playing out those same dynamics of growing up. And so did you have an opportunity when you went through this therapy before you separated to get some treatment and to do any kind of like EMDR or any kind of real therapy or real work that didn't involve, oh hey, here's a pill, here's, you know, an SSRI? Like how and I'm not saying anything bad about those things either. I'm just saying, I'm wondering like what did they do to help you work through that?
So it wasn't the military. This was all me. It
Mhm.
was self therapy, or I guess you can call it bibliotherapy, which is therapy through reading books. So I'll tell you how I get to reading books. So once the psychiatrist told me that, hey, I need to be processing out, and I had time to sit down with these thoughts, I start thinking about, okay, I know if I stay in, I don't want to be away from my family. I'm having nightmares. I'm having dreams about my kid and all that type of stuff, repeating, replaying. I'm trying to fix my family. So I don't want to deploy. I know that. I didn't want to be away from my family at all. I needed time. So they said the other option was to put me in a place where I don't deploy. But I knew if I do that, that was going to be a career killer.
Correct.
So the last thing that I wanted to be, which I've never been in my entire military career, was the so-called broken sailor, right? That, you know, hey, yeah, that's the guy, we got to put him over here because he has this going on, da, 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 da. And then I know there's no growth in that. So to me, Navy is dead. So now I have to find options, right? I'm trying to think, what do I want to do? And I start thinking, I'm like, okay, so I know I don't want to work a 9 to 5. And the reason why I don't want to work a 9 to 5, because I had this obsession with controlling my time. If I control my time, maybe I could spend more time with my family. I can be home. And this is all playing in my head. Does it make it true? Does it make it definitive? No, this is just the thoughts that I'm processing at the time. And I was like, okay, well, I was a recruiter. Maybe I can do sales.
Sure.
And looking at different sales options, and I don't know how it happened, but I got into network marketing, right? And I had a mentor by the name of Jared Bird. And I will never forget Jared Bird, and I'll always be thankful for him for this. And he said, and this is why I'm still in, by the way. He said, before I work with you, I want to give you this book. The book is called Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. And I want you to read this book. And I'm thinking like, dude, read. I want to do sales. I was this #1 recruiter in Ohio, blah, blah, blah. I could talk, da, 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 da. I can do all this sales stuff. He was like, look, I'm not going to work with you until you read this book. And I read the book. And mind you now, this is somebody I haven't read in, I probably was in my early 30s, maybe 31, if not, I might be wrong, but yeah, early. And I'm sitting there thinking, I've never read a book in my entire life like this. Like the last time I read a book was maybe in high school or something like that. And if you open a book in front of me, I'm going to go to sleep. But he insisted, he was adamant. And I read the book once, it didn't make sense. I read it twice, it still didn't make sense. They said there was a secret in the book and you'll find it at the end of this book. And I still didn't find the secret. But I think on the third time, it started clicking. And what happened was a new door and a new world started opening up. This new paradigm shifted for me. So I became this man of perspective, but I had perspective in one area. And that book really taught me that basically everything that I'm looking for externally outside is already here. And because of that one book, I'm thinking now, maybe I should read another book. Then he introduced me to another book, and then I start reading, then I start reading more, and I start reading more. But I didn't just read sales, I started reading everything else. And you know what I did in that company? In about 7 to 8 months, I think I recruited around maybe close to 100 people personally. Even people at the command. There's at least maybe 10 or 12 of them right in that same command at EOD Mobile U1 that I recruited. And it's not because I was cool, but because I had perspective. I can tell people, I can inspire people now. This wasn't the person who I was before. So what started to happen was I had this newfound confidence of who I was. And it wasn't just in sales, because I started reading books on, psychology and emotional intelligence and all these other things. And, they say, you don't read a book twice to find something that you haven't, you don't see in it before. You read it because sometimes you find something within yourself that you didn't know existed. And for me, I had this new identity. I know who I was and I know what I wanted to become. So now I was ready to get out. And it was funny, when I was ready to get out, my chief and one of the other petty officers at the time, my senior chief, they was trying to, basically talk me out of it. And this is not kind of insinuating anything negative about them, because that's their job. They want to make sure that I was good to go. But I was strong with my mentality, and what I realized, what they were telling me had nothing to do with them, nothing to do with me, but everything to do with them. They were basically projecting on me.
And their sense of security. And
they're like, the world is scary out there. And And like I said, I'm not mad at them for doing that, but I already had made the shift mentally already.
Right. And you took that time to prepare.
Yes. And that's the important part too. So, yeah.
You know what I mean? You didn't just like get out and go, oh, what do I do next? You had already decided within yourself, if I want to pursue this alternate way of being, this non-9 to 5, I'm not going to just get a regular job. Well, there's a lot of preparation and a lot of foresight that comes with taking on that goal, because it's not something that you can just decide to do. I mean, we all need money to live. We all need a livelihood. And you had 3 kids, so you obviously needed to have money for your livelihood. So you get this newfound confidence. You're like, okay, I can do this. And what happens next?
Well, I took the leap of faith. I'm also, one of the things that actually played out in my favor also, I'm also 100% disabled vet. So also having that security was also a blessing Really, truly, truly a blessing to
Absolutely.
have that. My wife is also retired Army, and she's also 100% disabled. And, she kind of went through that same type of phase also, trying to get out, just really, think about what you want to do. But once I did that, I continued into sales for a little bit. And then I got into real estate. I dabble in real estate, got my real estate license because, I'm the recruiter, I'm the sales guy. And I did a multitude of things. I even was what you call a book marketing consultant. So basically I would help people write books and get their book to bestseller, and sometimes international bestseller.
Wow.
I also dabbled in I have almost every fitness search you can think about, from corrective exercise, yoga, health and nutritionist, weight loss specialist, working with kids, working with the elderly. And this is from the National Academy of Sports Medicine. It's not one thing you do online. I'm talking about I sat in school and we learned these things for like maybe 2 or 3 years. And in retrospect, I was doing all these things because even though I so-called had this new identity and, I was trying to find really what I wanted to do. And I think because of that, this is what led me to filmmaking. So I'm a recruiter, right? Recruiter has a lot of money. You can sell a house and you can make $14,000, boom, quickly in California. And nobody at the time, because I'm so aware of self, nobody can tell me at the time that I wasn't going to be the number one. I was going to be the baddest realtor in California. I already knew that. I was going to be this multi-millionaire. Nobody's going to stop me. I was going to have the Bentley and the cars and all that type of stuff. I already had it in my mind. And so I'm starting to market now. So I'm doing these videos at the open house, and people are starting to recognize me. Even before I start selling houses, I'm starting to celebritize myself. People are seeing me in the streets like, hey, are you the speaking realtor dude? Because I was just dabbling in speaking also. And all this stuff comes from reading, by the way. This was born from knowledge outside of me that I pulled in. And so I'm sitting at an open house one day with all this perspective. I never stopped reading. I was at one point in time, I was averaging 3 books a month. And that's because I was just hungry for the knowledge, right? And there's own set of inherent problems come with data dumping, but I digress. So I'm sitting at an open house and making these cool videos and skits and stuff. And I'm sitting there thinking to myself, man, I actually like making these videos so much more than sitting here at an open house waiting for people to come in and dealing with different personalities and its purpose is one of those things where it comes to you with a whisper. It's never really loud. If you really pay attention to purpose, right? It's something where and when you reflect and you look back, it might have been you was a painter when you was a kid, or you like dancing. And then somewhere between the lines of you being a kid and becoming an adult, the world told you no so many times, it tells you it doesn't work or it's not logical, and you throw it to the side. But then as you're growing up, it still comes back to you, but it comes back in whispers but you have bills to pay, so you ignore it. So even when I'm as a recruiter, you have people telling me, man, maybe you should be an editor. Maybe you should do this. Maybe you should do that. I even had a guy by the name of William, I can't remember, Chevrolet. I don't want to butcher his last name, reached out to me on Facebook. He'd been watching my videos from the time. This guy's from Boston. And he was like, look, I love what you're doing, man. This is amazing work. You ever thought about becoming an actor? And I blew him off. I ignored the message. I didn't think nothing of it. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna leave it alone. So I looked at his page one day and I saw that he was funding basically his own movie, huge movie in Boston. He's like this big producer. And so I had the fear of loss. I reached out to him like, look, man, what is this acting thing? Well, can you tell me more? Because mind you, I'm still searching for this thing. And long story short,
and you're ignoring the signs. You've had all these signs that this is what you're supposed to be doing.
And exactly. So I'm just kind of laying it out. And he kind of started coaching me in acting. I started sitting there and I'm thinking, I don't think it's acting. I said, I'm a storyteller, right? So I'm so creative. I've always been creative. I remember coming to Brooklyn, New York and looking at the billboards. Man, I can create that. I can do these things. I'm an artist. I can draw. I can paint. I can do all these different things. And I was sitting there. I'm like, I don't want to be an actor. I think I want to tell my own stories, because if you're an actor, you always have to be basically doing auditions. It doesn't matter how big of an actor you are. Unless you're Tom Cruise, trust me, you got to be working constantly. You have to be in a line against every other actor on the planet to to get an audition. So I sat there, I was like, man, I need to tell my own stories. So I start editing and, YouTube Academy. And before you know it, I start putting out these little shorts and people start getting recognized. And before I said, you know what, let me go back to school. I went to college, and then I got my bachelor's degree in digital filmmaking. And the rest is history, man. I'm just in love with it. I'm the happiest man alive now.
Kerron, that is an incredible story. We've even had a couple other people that have chimed in. My friend Mandy, she said, "The whisper is so true." I mean, it is so true. Like, you get all these signs for these things, and then you don't do them, even though they're there. And then another person, Sun Lee, said, "Absolutely love this." I mean, you're pinpointing exactly how people find purpose and how they find meaning. It comes at you in the most unexpected and
Absolutely.
uncharted ways. I mean, I personally can attest to this in the advocacy world. I started off, doing puppy mill protests as a way to have some kind of purpose or some sort of meaning, because I didn't feel like my 9 to 5 was giving me that kind of fulfillment. And lo and behold, I can now take that same advocacy and use that for military causes. I can use it for podcasting. I mean, it's incredible how you have like these signs early on that you're supposed to be doing something. I mean, my father was a broadcaster. He was in radio and television. I didn't go into radio. I didn't do any of that. But I was able to navigate the Navy to move from being a electrician to being a surface warfare officer, then to being a PAO, public affairs officer. And I think that the universe tells you what you're supposed to be doing and what you're meant to do, and you ignore it because you're so focused on, like you said, all those external things that don't really matter, instead of looking within yourself and seeing what it was that you were supposed to do. So you get through film school and you're like, oh, I got all these skills. I can make these great videos. Now what? So what do you do?
Well, I have perspective and I have a voice. And because of all my experiences, right? And that's why it's always cool to become a person of perspective, because you start seeing the world differently. So now I'm having all these ideas in my head about how I can change the world, how I can make things different. And these ideas came from outside of me and my experiences. So I'm trying to use my voice to help others. Making like videos on Facebook, and people are starting to pick it up. I'm thinking about the military because of my experiences, right? And one of the things I would say this before moving on, because I always tell vets, if you have to do something, you have to find meaning in life once you get out the military. That if it's anything that you do, find something that brings meaning in your life. And if I can give you any tip on finding your purpose, because of my experiences, because I've done a multitude of things, what I realize, if you're looking for purpose and if you're struggling with that, do a multitude of things. Do everything you can. But the key thing is, what you have to understand is that whatever it is you're doing, you have to commit to mastery, because a lot of the times we will never like what we're not good at. We will never like what we're not good at. And
true.
So if we don't like a thing, if we really reflect, what we will find sometimes, most cases, we're not just good at it. So what we'll do, we'll jump ship to the next thing. Then we'll jump ship to the next thing, and we never commit to mastery to anything. But I think these things, you have to be aware of self in order to make it happen. Because you might have somebody at the corner office right now hating on the guy who has the parking lot spot and the nice view, and saying he's a kiss butt. But in reality, when you look at that person, they might not even be good at their job. They might be the person they have to, throw off the ship when the ship is sinking. So you have to commit to mastery. And once you commit to mastery, if you in that moment, you can say, if I don't like this, then go to the next thing. Because a lot of the times you might be, it's not just you don't find your purpose, it's because you're not good at something. So you don't want to stay in it. And I think most people, they deal with that. Oh, I don't like this job. I hate this job. And when you look at their potential, they're really running. And you'll be jumping ship from ship to ship. So I digress. I just wanted to add that in there.
But they're also not tacticians, I would say, especially in the officer community. I mean, it's a little bit different for the enlisted, because you guys can unless you guys, I mean, I was one of you guys. I mean, as an enlisted person, you're more of a doer. So you can keep doing and doing and doing. But then you get into the officer ranks and you can, I think, get better at leadership. You can get better at the psychological dynamics of leadership. And that is in itself an entirely a skill. And I do believe that's also a skill, but you aren't tangibly like filmmaking or even being a boatswain's mate, building or being a mechanic. All those jobs take mastery. And that's something that we just don't emphasize enough in society is get good at something hard. Because if you don't get good at something hard, you'll never reap the rewards of the work that you've put in to make that thing hard.
Absolutely.
And B, you won't be able to provide something that is better and bigger and differentiate you from other people. And C, you don't have this thing that you can see the satisfaction of working on and getting better at. That's how I feel about podcasting. I've been doing this for 4 years. The podcast that you're watching now is not the same podcast for episode 1. I mean, like you said, I have the fancy background now. I've got a nicer mic. I do reels. There's just different things that I've incorporated into this art because I've been doing it consistently every single week, sometimes twice a week. And I love it. I'm absolutely in love with this art form because there's just something so fascinating about being able to have these kinds of sacred conversations. And it sounds like you had that same attitude and mindset going into filmmaking.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And basically, the first thing I thought about was, okay, maybe I'm telling stories. Maybe I need to come up with a documentary. And now, granted, I already had the perspective of the military and with the transition and why they suffer. All this came from my experiences, from reading a multitude of different things. And I was like, okay, let me start writing a book. I'm like 90 pages in the book. I've been writing the book for a couple of years now, on and off, because I've just been busy. So I start working on a documentary because I'm more visual now, but the book is still there. I'm trying to get it finished by August. But so I started working on a documentary and I'm starting to interview veterans, right? So, once you start focusing on something, the rest of the world opens up to you, right? So now I'm interviewing veterans. I'm starting to meet different veteran advocates. I'm starting to see more veterans who are committing suicide, who actually try to commit suicide. I'm meeting speakers and doctors and you name it. And this world was so heavy. I mean, so heavy, it's bad enough. I'm dealing with my own issues. I don't want to use the word bad enough, but I'm dealing with life too. Nothing is all flowers and berries and candies, right? Life is still life is
hard.
I'm just present enough to know how to sometimes deal with it, but I do have my moments just like everybody else. And I'm start hearing about these veterans, and so now, because when you have perspective, you automatically become an empath. You start caring a lot more than the average person. Because I have perspective, because I can see things from a different point of view, because I look at the world differently. I can reverse and put myself in somebody's shoes. So I have days where I find myself just crying, just sitting by myself, just crying, because I had a veteran who told me he slit his wrist and was waiting at the pier for help to come. They call the cops on him, and the cops come, and they still putting guns on him. And this veteran wants help, at the pier. I had a veteran who put a gun to his mouth. I had somebody who swallowed a whole bunch of pills and with alcohol and was waiting in the tub to die. And I can go on and on with these stories of people who can't sleep, who can't process emotions, and just the suicide. So this whole world is open to me about suicide. And now I'm taking on this giant because I have perspective, and I feel like if I don't do it, I feel sometimes like, does that make sense?
It does. What do you hope that the documentary will accomplish? Like, what do you want people to take away from this film after watching these interviews?
I want people to understand that suicide, it's idiosyncratic and multifaceted, right? It's strange. It has many faces, and it's very complicated. And I want them to understand that we need to kind of break some of the stigmas, like, somebody committing suicide. I want to normalize people who even attempt committing suicide. So one of the stigmas is, like, they say people who commit suicide, they're selfish. right? And this is something I thought of, I used to say the same thing too. But when you really ask yourself, who did you hear that from? I couldn't even tell you, right? So I was more conforming to somebody who said something, and what if they're wrong, right? But what I've learned now is that people who take their lives, a lot of times it's not about being selfish. It's more about ending the pain they feel right now. They're in so much pain, they want the pain to stop. The question is, how do you make them feel safe right now so that they may live again another time? And so I want civilians especially to understand that perspective is key. I want veterans to understand that perspective is key. To understand that when veterans are transitioning, that veterans have a hard time connecting with civilians, especially in the 9-to-5 sector. Because in the 9-to-5 sector, civilians say things like every man for themselves. Well, they don't really say it, but they show it through their actions, right? And veterans, they're used to brotherhood, they're used to camaraderie, they're used to cohesiveness, and they come back to a world that's divided, and it's split between the middle with politics, left versus right,
Sure.
right versus left, black versus white, male versus female. We all seen the podcast, right? I mean, it's so they're not used to these things. And I want also veterans to understand that they have to get back their purpose. They have to get back their tribe. They have to create a new identity. And also they have to learn how to actually deal with people, learn how to have emotional intelligence. And these are the things sometimes we lose when we're in the military. So it's all about perspective. There's so much to say that I want them to get from it. I can talk for hours about it, but it's all about giving them perspectives on things that actually work.
Right.
So,
and it's tough. I mean, I have just moved to a new city. I know nobody here. And as a military person who moved every 2 years since 2013, I don't have a sense of belonging or community. And I have to figure that out. It is on me to find what are the local activities that I want to do. Do I want to go to a drum circle on the beach on Sunday? Do I want to go to church every weekend? Do I want to join a political advocacy group? Do I want to volunteer with animals? Those are all the things that are going through my head as I'm navigating this transition, because I think it's also truly important to get off of our phones and get off of these internet devices and see people in person and have these face-to-face engagements. Because when I have friends and when I go out to brunch with my girlfriend every weekend, which I did in Norfolk, I mean, it does so much for your mental health to have those friends. And I think that when we are disconnected, that's when those disgusting and nasty and awful thoughts come in of suicide, or I'm all alone, I'll never find anyone. I've been in those pity party moments in my life. And I think that it's important for people to see that everyone struggles. And I think that's also what your stories will provide, is that we are all human and we are all struggling with something. And if we understood that we all struggle, I just think people would be nicer to one another, because they would realize that this is a universal thing that we're all trying to get through. Nobody's got life figured out. I don't care how old you are. I don't care how many schools you have. I don't care how famous you are. You still don't have it all figured out.
Yeah, absolutely. There's one of the most effective talk therapies right now is a therapy called DBT, dialectical behavior therapy. It was created by a woman in the 70s. Her name is Marsha Linham. And she created this for people who had like major bipolar disorder and people who had major suicide tendencies. And it has long developed and grown into something different now, where it's helping a multitude of different things. And when you peel back, so it's very effective. You don't hear about it a lot. Most people don't know it exists, but it's there and it's working. And when you peel back the layers of what they're actually doing, so I guess the dialectic means something where it's about acceptance and change. And so you have to be able to accept who you are, accept that your problems are real, accept what you're doing, right now, everything that you're feeling is real. And now that you know that, now what? How do you change? How do you move forward instead of staying there? And they work on things like basically mindfulness. They
Mhm.
work on regulating emotions. They work on, and it's a few more things. But me being a person perspective, when you peel the layers back, what I realize, they're teaching people life skills. And I'm talking about people who have major bipolar disorder, people
Mhm.
who have major depression, and the success rate is high, but they're teaching them life skills.
Right.
Let's think about that for a minute. So my goal is, how do I meet people before? Because a lot of times people want to change in a state of desperation, right? Why not change in a state of inspiration? So I want to meet them before they go to the therapist. I'm not trying to take away from years of clinical data and experience. I'm
Sure.
not saying that, because the therapy, there's a lot more to it, but at its core, they had to learn that therapy from somebody else. They had to read a book. Somebody had to teach them. I'm trying to meet veterans at the half of it, and give them the information, right? Because no change can come in your life unless we have the input of new information. And once you understand the validity in that aphorism, your life will be changed forever. No change can happen in your life unless you have the input of new information, meaning I can't change and you can't change and my mental health can't change and your marriage can't change and our finances can't change and the world can't change unless we learn something new. And
True.
that's what I hope people understand. But most importantly, application of that knowledge, which fundamentally changes us forever and sometimes for better. And that's really my mission.
I love it. I
Really my
love it.
mission.
I mean, it sounds like you're a person who is living in their purpose, and that's something that's so inspiring to listen to, because it changes everything when you know who you are, what you want to do, where you want to go next. And what I love about your work is you've not only done this TED Talk that goes into a lot of the struggles that veterans go through. You're not only putting together a documentary, you're not only working on a book, you also have a business where you work with other entrepreneurs, other creators. And I actually pulled one of the clips, and I want to play it because it's a short commercial, but it's just sort of an example of some of the work that you do for other people who are interested in showcasing their work.
Have you ever thought about when's the best time to start goal planning? Or how about we wait until December 31st to plan for the new year? Nothing but net. Instead of new year, new me, why not new me right now? At this event, we will show you different goal planning strategies as they relate to increasing your finances, your life, and living more fruitful. Shaken, not stirred. Click the link below and register today. We're going to build vision boards, talk about goal planning, budgeting, real estate, and the VA loan process. But most importantly, we're going to put it all in writing. How about we elevate our lives together? Cheers.
I just love that. I love the cuts. The cuts were so cool. For those of you who are just listening, as he was talking, there's a cut in there where he grabs a glass of champagne or a drink, and then it cuts to another frame of the drink. I mean, I've seen that in a lot of movies, or even like the ceiling shot at the end where it comes up. It's just so creative, and that's also what I love about your filmmaking. And anybody can go on your website, and I want to make sure I pronounce it correctly. I have it right here, but the Triniman Films.
TriniManFilms.com. So the TriniManFilms.com, the name comes from my country, Trinidad, where I was born. So they'll say you a Trini. So I just call it TriniManFilms.com just to represent.
Yeah, I love it. It's just here. I'll move my camera out of the way so I can share the screen. Give me 1 second so I can hit share. There we go. But yeah, here's your website, and tell me a little bit about the business side of this and how you work with other business owners and creators to do these kind of production. They're not even commercials. I mean, that was one example that was a little bit more like a commercial.
They're more like miniature movies.
They're like a miniature movie about someone. And so how did you get the idea to do this and to take this approach with business owners?
So, okay, so it's the first part. There's two parts to this. The first part, when I got into filmmaking, right, and my gift and my curse is because I'm aware, right? I have perspective. So I'm always thinking about fulfillment and not getting into something where I'm lost and I'm like, you know what, I'm tired of this. I don't want to do this anymore. So when I got into the filmmaking, one of the things I told myself is that I want to tell stories. I want to do movies. I want to do documentaries. I want to tell stories that move the world, that leave, but most importantly, leave an emotional impact on people. That was the key words right there. So the end goal is still to do more movies and stories, which I'm kind of in now. But in order to do that, I had to stay focused on telling stories because I don't call myself a videographer. I don't want to do that. I don't want to run around just following somebody with a camera, doing, random, videos of snippets of, no, that's not what I want to do. I got in this business because I wanted to tell stories. I wanted to leave an emotional impact on the world. And so I had to stick to a narrative form. The question is, do business owners want something like this, right? So business essentially is two things, right? It's having a good product or a good service that exceeds the value of whatever the customer is paying for it. That's a key word, right? Exceeds the value. But the problem is there's only one way any of us can get money, right? And that way is from other people. And human beings, we're not logical, we're emotional. And the best way to connect with them is through stories.
Yes.
Being vulnerable, sharing your story with the world so somebody can connect with you. Because, as we talked on the phone before, we was talking about how having something with somebody in common, y'all can connect. And a lot of times these stories, people are actually healed by them because they might think they're the only one going through it. But when they put it out there and they realize that, everybody else is dealing with it. So yeah, I wanted to stick to a narrative form. So that way I'm still sharpening my skills. I'm still sticking to the narrative, but I'm also selling to business owners like, look, I see you. You're great. You're a great realtor. You're a great businessman, but that's all I see. Who are you? Because people don't buy you. They don't buy your business. They buy you.
They buy your story, and they want to. It's kind of, it's so interesting because even with the podcast that I do, I get just as much, if not more, engagement on my standalone posts and my videos. And it's not because of me, it's because I share a story about my why. And that's what people are interested in, because I go to something because I want to know, well, what makes Kerron tick? Why is he who he is? What is he doing this for? Everybody's curious. They want to know who you are. And it also helps build trust. It builds connection. It builds relationships. If people understand what you're in it for, then they have more of a reason to want to continue to visit your content or to interact with you, whether that be online or whether that be in person or what have you. And I just love it. That takes so much production time too. So do you work with a team? Like, how did you?
So I laugh because, man, I do everything. I am the editor, the writer, the director, the cinematographer, the colorist. So, and there's a gift and a curse in that, right? So the gift is I am able to save a lot of money, and keep a lot of the cost. The curse is it can be challenging, right? But you don't grow it out of challenge. But another gift to it is that I understand all parts of the business, right?
Right. So when you do have a team one day,
and I do work. So every now and then, depending on the project, I will work. I'll have other guys that come with me, and they'll work maybe 2 or 3 people. The biggest team I've worked with was 22 people, and that was actually for a short film. That was a bigger production. But that was the biggest team that I've worked with. But because I've did everything myself, it helps. It helps.
Yeah, the business.
I know the business. Yes,
I feel the same way about podcasting.
And do all that stuff. But yeah, I have no regrets about learning everything. Yeah.
No, I think it's beautiful what you're doing. And I have never seen somebody put together movies about businesses. Now, if somebody was interested in having you come, I know you're out of the LA area. So if people are in the LA area, it's obviously much easier for them to work with you. But I assume like this is something that you are open to working
Yeah.
with people on.
100%. All depends on the budget, what they're trying to do. And
Right.
basically how I capture their stories, I'll first sit down with the person, and then I'll do an interview with them, and I'll record the entire thing, and I'll ask the hard questions. I'll probe, and I'll ask them to go deep. And of course, obviously, I'll get the permission if this. I always insist that you go deep because your story can help somebody else heal. So I'll ask the hard questions, and they'll go deep. And a lot of times, not even like most of the times, it's actually healing for them.
I bet.
Go through this. It is so healing. Some of the clients that I work with haven't told me stuff that they haven't told their therapist.
Wow.
You know, and they get deep, and I take that recording and I take it home and I chop it up and I put it in a narrative form, because, you know, when you asking people for their story, sometimes the story is all over the place. And especially when people with trauma, sometimes they can't remember certain things. They're trying to tell a story. It's here and there. They're emotional. They might be crying. And I have to take that. So once again, it's a heavy weight, right? I have to take these because I'm collecting a lot of traumatic stories. I have to take these stories and digest it, walk around the house. I'm listening to it. I'm playing it over and come up with a narrative that tells a story in a cinematic way. And not only do I do that, depending on the story, I'll take the story and enter it into a film festival, no cost to them. You know what I mean? I will just do it. And now, not only do they have a video that when somebody goes to their website, they can say, oh, wow, I never knew that this is who this person is, or a video that their kids can look for the rest of their lives on the internet. Now they might have an award-winning video. In fact, the last video I did a documentary for a woman. She has a nonprofit. She lost her daughter in a car accident. It's called Reese's Wings of Love. And that was one of the hardest things for me to do because her story was just, her story was insane. I'm crying, she's crying while we're filming, and it was just, but we got it done. And now it's selected in a film festival, and film festival is coming up here on the 25th of April, and she's so excited. She doesn't know yet, but I'm probably going, if we win, I'm probably going to give her an award. You know what I mean, for it. I know she's going to really love that for her daughter. So
that's so cool, Kerron. I love what you're doing.
It's just cool, man. I'm the happiest man alive because I'm doing what I love and I'm staying within those parameters. Yes, life is still hard.
Sure.
This is challenging.
Oh, it's a grind.
But it's fine. It is fine.
I love it. Well, I love your work, and I just thank you so much. I can't even say enough good things about you, and I don't even remember how I came across your content. It was because of the TEDx talk that you did. It was
a TED talk. Yeah, people start sharing it, and I had different people reach out to me. So
that was amazing, and I'm so glad you did that talk. Let's go back one real quick before we close out the call, because I did want to ask you about the TEDx talk. How did that come about?
Once again, I believe that when I'll always go back to perspective and learning. Once you start having perspective, you start opening doors, right? The world starts coming to you. I'm a man of God. I believe in God, and I believe that God opened this for me also. With that being said, I already had this theory in my mind, right? I already had about the veterans and everything. You know, it's something I already wanted to do. And I also wanted to always do a TED talk because I dabble in speaking here and there, you know, but the world didn't really know who I was. And the only reason I dabble in speaking is because I was data dumping so much. I had to let it out somewhere. And I felt the change. And you know, when you feel change, you want to share it. Sure. You have no choice. You just want to share it. Yeah. And one of the things I said I need to start doing more was networking. And I end up at a networking event in the winery in Temecula. And while I'm networking, talking to different people and you know, just having a glass of wine. And one of the guys come up on stage. His name is Jonathan. And, you know, after he was introduced, he talked and said, I'm a TED Talk organizer. Mm-hmm. And the light bulb in my head went off. Bling, ding, 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 ding. So once he said that, it seemed like everybody wanted to talk to him now. So I'm kind of waiting in line. I'm practically stalking him, right? I'm practically stalking him. So I have my drink and I'm kind of like looking. I'm waiting for this one person to finish. And when somebody finishes, somebody else, I walk in and somebody else walking and I'll turn around. And I'm like, oh my God. So after maybe about, I promise you, maybe 6 or 10 minutes of stalking, just waiting to get my chance, I finally pulled him to the side. And he was really amazing guy, man. You know, he's like, man, I just want to share an idea with you. I hope you have time to talk. He's like, yeah, no worries. And he pulled me outside away from all the music. Meanwhile, he was talking to everybody else inside with the music. He pulled me outside with all the, away from all the music. And you know what they say, what success is when opportunity meets preparation.
Mm-hmm.
I was ready. I was ready with my argument. I was ready with what I've been sitting on about veterans and transition for so long. And then I just start talking to him. And I could see it in his eyes, you see people, his eyes kind of like, and he was like, wow. He's like, I tell you what, prepare a video of this for me and send it. I have a rest of, a more of a team that would look at it. And I'm like, okay, cool, sure, no problem. He went away and I'm still processing everything. I got cold feet. I was scared.
I bet.
I was scared. In fact, I didn't message him back. He texted me about a week later. He said, hey, are you still interested in doing this TED Talk?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, yeah. And I was like, yeah, I'll get it to you tomorrow.
Yeah.
Right. I get the video, but knowing how I am now, I felt terrible about it. And so I made the video that day. Now, keep in mind, the idea is already there, right? When opportunity meets preparation. So I made the video that day, committed to it. I send it to him.
Did you just speak off the top of your head for that video?
Off the top of my head. Not for the TED Talk, though.
No. But for the audition.
For the audition. And just boom, just rain down the line. And I send a video to him. And the next day, he called me. And I was like, hey, Kerron, He's talking. He's like, I just want you to know our team. And now, so I think there was like maybe 6 or 7 people on the panel that was looking at it. And I sent him a YouTube link. And I'm smart now. I want to make sure people are looking at it. I sent him a YouTube link and 21 people looked at it. So I'm like, okay, they're sharing it. Other people are looking. And he was like, cool. Hey man, guess what? You are the last and final speaker to get in. And I didn't really know how TED Talks work, but apparently, they've been doing auditions for this for months and hundreds of people to audition. It's very
hard to get in.
So I'm blessed to say that, that I got in, at that time. And when time to do the TED Talk, it was the most terrifying thing that I ever had to done in my entire life.
Oh, I bet.
Because there were doctors in there were psychologists. I mean, and I'm going, this guy, I don't have any degrees in this field. I'm talking about psychology. I'm talking about suicide.
And you have that costume on too of the hat.
I had to, and that's why filmmaking helped me with that, because I knew in order to leave an emotion, when you're making a film, right, you want to grab people in the first minute of your film. And I'm using the same exact narrative. I'm thinking about emotional impact, even the way how I craft my message. How do I leave emotional impact? What do I need to do to grasp them from the first time I walk out? So I came up with the whole idea, half military suit, half veteran suit, got it tailored. And when I stepped on there, I had a mini applause before it even started. There was already applause before it started. And that helped boost my confidence, because going on there, the nerves were kicking in and I was doing push-ups and jumping jacks. And I walked out on that stage, man, and I took a deep breath in. And once again, I was ready. And I let go, got a standing ovation, the first standing ovation too. I mean, it was such an amazing.
I wish I was in the room.
It was so amazing, man. And I was overwhelmed with how many people. I had people in the audience who cried, people in the audience who related. They were coming up, they were taking pictures. I signed autographs. I'm like, what is happening? And it was such an awesome feel to know that perspective, changing a paradigm, faith in who you are and what you believe got me here, and none of this, I'm telling you, I wouldn't be here right now if I didn't understand that no change doesn't happen unless you have the input of new information. Once you figure that out, I mean, yeah, you'll be an assassin in everything you do.
I love it. And do the work.
Obviously that part.
But thank you so much, Kerron. I am so honored that you took the time to come on. I'm so glad that I came across your video, and I'm so glad we've kept in touch and that you had the opportunity to come on here and share a little bit about your story. I feel like we could talk for 5 hours, but I do probably have to close out the call. But I want to thank you so much for coming onto the show. And I'm sure people will be checking out your work and many, many of your films to come. And I will meet you backstage to say
Indeed.
goodbye as I go full screen. All right, guys. Thank you so much for this amazing opportunity to talk to Kerron. It was such a great conversation. I'm so blessed to do this work. Every time it's like, I just can't believe the caliber of people that agree to talk to me. And it's something that I consider very sacred, and I hope you do as well. So as I always close out these calls, take care of yourselves, take care of each other, and enjoy the rest of your evening. Bye-bye now.